What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I am going in the future a couple years and predicting the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series driver lineup. Let's go and just jump straight into it. We're going to start off with the double zero car for Starcom Racing. Now, I don't think anything is going to change here. Now, Quinn Halford currently drives for the organization. His contract ends at the end of 2021. However, I do think Starcom Racing is not going to be making any changes, and I think that they're going to keep Quinn Halford. I think they're going to sign him for a couple more years, and I think by 2023, we're still going to see Quinn Halford driving his double zero car. I know his performances on the track have not been that great, but still, I think Quinn Halford is still going to be driving the double zero car full-time by the 2023 season. Up next, we're going to talk about the one car for Trackhouse Racing. Now, it had already been announced about a couple weeks ago that Ross Chastain was going to be driving his car full-time in a second Trackhouse car. And I don't think anything is going to change going into 2023, considering Justin Marks is a really big fan of Ross Chastain. I think this one car is still going to be around in 2023, and I think that they're going to keep Ross Chastain in it. I think that this one car will also be a little bit more competitive. I think next year this car will have a very good shot at making the playoffs, and I think that they're going to want to keep Ross Chastain in this organization, considering he's been really solid throughout the first couple years of his Cup Series career. And I think Ross Chastain is still going to be driving the one car full time in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the two car for Team Penske. I believe that Austin Cindric is still going to be driving this car, and the reasons I think that Austin Cindric is going to be driving this car, number one, he is the son of Tim Cindric, who is the competition director and the president at Team Penske currently at the moment. Plus, he won the NASCAR Xfinity Series Championship back in 2020, and he's been really good on road courses, and the Cup Series schedule potentially next year could be filled with a lot more road courses next year. So I think Austin Cindric is still going to be driving his car full-time in 2022, and I think he'll bring a lot to the table going forward for this team. Up next, we're going to talk about the 3-car for Richard Childress Racing. I still expect Austin to only be driving the 3-car full-time for this team in 2023. Now, it had been rumored that maybe Richard Childress was maybe going to sell the team at the end of 2021, but those rumors have basically dropped. And yeah, look at Austin Dillon, like I said, who is the grandson of Richard Childress. I think he's still going to be driving for this team. I think Austin Dillon, especially over the last couple of years, has become a much better and a much more solid driver. On top of that, I think Austin Dillon, the more experience he gets, the better he is going to become. I still think Austin Dillon will be driving a 3-car full-time for Richard Childress Racing in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 4-car for Stewart-Haas Racing. I still think we know for sure that Kevin Harvick has already been confirmed that he'll be driving this car full-time through the 2023 season. However, I do believe this is going to be Kevin Harvick's final year in the NASCAR Cup Series. Kevin Harvick by 2023 is going to be up in his 47 to 48 years old. He's going to be the oldest NASCAR Cup Series driver competing in the field, and the only driver potentially in the next few years that had been racing since 2001. And you look at Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick is a lot older of a driver, and he may be looking also maybe in the future in the ownership role as well. To me, I think Kevin Harvick's last year is going to be 2023. I think he has the potential of making some redemption going into 2022, and I still think Kevin Harvick will be driving his 4-car full-time in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 5-car for Hendrick Motorsports. This one has already been confirmed. Kyle Larson has a contract that does go through the 2023 season. Now, his contract does end after 2023, but I do believe that Kyle Larson is going to be continuing to race for this team long term. Look at Kyle Larson's performance, especially this year. He has 5 wins so far this year and currently sits as a regular season points leader. On top of that, Kyle Larson in the next couple years, or even this year as a matter of fact in 2021, could win a NASCAR Cup Series championship. So I do think that Hendrick Motorsports is going to want to keep their eyes on Kyle Larson, keep them in their organization going forward, and I think we're going to still see Kyle Larson drive this 5-car. Kyle Larson is one of the most talented, if not the most talented drivers currently sitting in North America today, and I think he'll win a lot more races, and I still think that he'll probably get a much longer contract extension going forward. Up next, we're going to talk about the 6-car for Roush Fenway Racing. This one's already been pretty much confirmed. Brad Keselowski is basically going to be driving the 6-car pretty much for the rest of his career. Remember, it has already been announced for next year going into 2022 that Brad Keselowski is going to be moving over to Roush Fenway Racing next year to become a co-owner / driver of the team. Now, he's not going to have a major ownership stake at the beginning of his time at Roush Fenway Racing, but as time goes on and the longer he's in his team, the more of a say he's going to have at the organization. On top of that, Brad Keselowski's been wanting an ownership stake, and this is one of the biggest decisions why he's going over there. Now, I do think in 2022, He's going to have a little bit of a bumpy road. I think he'll be competing for wins at certain points. I think that the 6 car will be a little bit better than what Ryan Newman has done. I think he will make the playoffs in 2022. But in 2023, I think is where this team's going to start heading in more of the right direction. I think Brad Keselowski will bring great things over to this team going forward. I think he's going to be a big manufacturer. Not only that, a big asset to this team, and I think he'll bring a lot to the table for Roush Racing going into 2023 as well. Up next, we're going to talk about the 7 car for Spire Motorsports. While this has not been confirmed, I do believe that Corey LaJoie is going to return to Spire Motorsports going to 2023. Now, Corey LaJoie's contract does go through only right now the 2022 season. We know he's going to be returning to the 7 car full-time next year. But I think Spire Motorsports really likes Corey LaJoie a lot, especially I think he's a very talented driver. He's done pretty solid so far this year at points, a little bit disappointing points too, but he's been very solid at points as well. I think that they're going to want to keep Corey LaJoie in the team going forward. I think, again, they're downsizing one car to really just focus on Corey to help his performances on the racetrack. And I do think the Spire Motorsports, especially with the next-gen car, could really benefit from that, and I think that we're going to see him in the 7 car full-time once again in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 8 car for Richard Childress Racing. I expect that Tyler Reddick will be back in this 8 car going into 2023. Now, Tyler Reddick's contract is really currently unknown at the moment. It is believed that Tyler Reddick will be driving the 8 car in the 2022 season. But if you look at Tyler Reddick, especially this year and over the last couple years throughout his rookie year and this year, he has been extremely impressive to watch on the racetrack. And I do think that he has potential of winning a Cup Series race next year. And I do think that RCR, with a little bit of improvement from the next-gen car, I think that Richard Childress Racing is going to become a much better team going forward. So to me, I think Tyler Reddick will continue driving his car, the 8 car going to 2023, and it'll bring a lot to the table there in a couple of years. Up next, we're going to talk about the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports. I expect Chase Elliott to be returning to this car. Now, Chase Elliott's contract only right now goes through the 2022 season, but behind the scenes right now, it is believed that there is a massive lifelong contract that is being worked on for Chase Elliott going forward. Like I said, his contract right now only goes through the 2022 season, but you look at a guy who won the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series Championship. He could also win the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series Championship. You never know. Could also win the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series Championship as well, especially with how good of a driver he is on road courses. Arguably the best road course racer currently in the business right now. I think that they're going to continue to bring a lot to the table, and I think we'll see Chase Elliott back in his car in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 10 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. This is going to be where the first change is going to take place at all. I think that Eric Almirola will be back in the car. We know he's going to probably be back in the car with SHR for 2022. But I do think going into 2023, I think that plans are going to change. I think that because there's going to be a CEO change with Smithfield, I think that 2022 is going to be the last year we see Eric Almirola at the team, and I think that they are going to bring Ryan Preece into this organization for 2023. And the biggest reason I bring this up is because Ryan Preece is part of the KHI management group, and he has already raced this year for DJR Racing, which has ties with SHR because of Kevin Harvick. On top of that, I think that there is potential that Ryan Preece probably will not be returning to Cup next year, and there's potential that he could go over to SHR's Xfinity Series program next year on a full-time basis. So to me, in my honest opinion, I think that Ryan Preece is going to drive the 10 car full-time next in 2023. I think Eric Almirola will lead the ride, and I think that Ryan Preece is going to drive the 10 car in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. I don't expect anything to change even in the next couple of years. Denny Hamlin has a multi-year contract with extension currently going on with Joe Gibbs Racing. I think Denny Hamlin is going to continue to drive for this team going into 2023. Look how good of a driver Denny Hamlin has been. I think that they're going to want to keep him in this organization long-term going forward. I think we're going to still continue to see Denny Hamlin drive this team long-term. He's a great driver and also a NASCAR Hall of Famer, 3-time Daytona 500 champion. I think he will continue driving for this team long-term. Up next, we're going to talk about the 12th car for Team Penske. This has basically already been confirmed for the 2023 season. We know that Ryan Blaney is going to be driving this car. The big question is who's the crew chief that he's going to have going through 2023 is going to be the big question because Todd Gordon is not going to be crew chiefing after the 2021 season. I think, though, that Ryan Blaney will be, again, he just this year got his first multi-win year. I think the longer he's been in the series, the better overall that he has become. And I think that long term, even going into 2023, he could become one day a NASCAR Cup Series championship contender. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but we know for sure that Ryan Blaney will drive the 12 car full time in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 13 car for MBM Motorsports. Now, this is going to be the first part-time entry, as I think that the 13 car is only going to run a few select races in 2023, and I think that they are going to choose Garrett Smithley to drive those few races. I think a lot of the plans for the 13 car are really going to come down to what decision is going forward in regards to if they are able to make the Daytona 500. If they're able to make the Daytona 500, I think they 100% will have a massive, massive opportunity of making it into the big show and running a few more races. But if they don't make the Daytona 500 in 2023, I think that will be where they'll kill it, and it probably won't run this 13 car any other race. But I do think, at least for sure, they will attempt the Daytona 500 in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 14 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. Well, I don't think anything is going to change, and I still don't think anything is going to change. I think Chase Briscoe, once again, is going to return to Stewart-Haas Racing through 2023. Look at the development program for Ford right now. He's been part of the Ford development program since 2016, and even the last couple, especially in 2021, he has been really, really proven. I think the longer he's going to be in the series, the better I think he is going to become, and I think that Chase Briscoe will be a major asset to Stewart-Haas Racing going forward, a driver that has a lot of talent and a lot of potential to be a fantastic driver in this series. I think that we're going to see Chase Briscoe 100% be with this team even going into 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 15 car for Rick Ware Racing. This is going to be the first of only 2 Rick Ware cars that we're going to see in 2023. I still think that James Davison is going to be driving for this team full time. You look at road courses. James Davison is a very, very solid and a very, very talented road course racer. On top of that, I've seen James Davison perform on any other type of track this year, and he's been exceptionally well. He gets out of the way of drivers, and Rick Ware says he wants to be more competitive, and I think that if he gets a more competitive Rick Ware car, I think he'll be a much more solid driver, and I think that we're going to still see James Davison drive this 15 car full-time even in 2023. Also, I think does bring full funding, and plus, he has said that he does want to race basically in NASCAR, so I think that we're going to continue to see James Davison driving this in NASCAR in the Cup Series through 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 16 car for Kaulig Racing. This has already been confirmed. Justin Haley has a multi-year contract with Kaulig Racing. He'll be driving for the team starting full-time in 2022 in the Cup Series. This makes a lot of sense considering Justin Haley basically started the Cup Series program for them, attempted to qualify for them in the Daytona 500 in 2020, and has been a very solid Xfinity Series driver. I think his team could be very, very successful in super speedways, and you look at their road course program, not to mention they actually, as a matter of fact, were able to basically score a victory at Indianapolis road course. Of course, they had to earn it under certain circumstances, but they were basically able to go out there and win there. So it was really, really cool to see that, and I think we're still going to see Justin Haley drive. On top of that, I think Justin Haley has a very, very strong possibility and a strong opportunity in competing in those events, and I think we're going to see a lot out of Justin Haley by 2023. Next, we're going to talk about the 17 car for Roush Fenway Racing. While this has not been 100% confirmed through the 2023 season, I think that Chris Buescher is going to be going to return to Roush Fenway through the 2024 season. I think he's going to be with the team through the Fastenal contract. And I think a lot of this is due to the fact of his performance on the track. I think Chris Buescher has become a very, very solid driver on the racetrack. You look at his performance this year. I know the last 5 or 6 weeks, really, especially since summer, have not been that great. But you look at his performance, especially before the summer, he was really, really consistent and was in the playoffs throughout the year. And I think he could potentially bring not just Brad in the playoffs, but also could bring himself into the playoffs as well. I still think we are going to see him drive the 17 car for Roush Fenway Racing in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 18 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. I don't expect anything to change. I think Kyle Busch will once again be driving his 18 car in 2023. Now, Kyle Busch's contract is believed to be up after 2022, but I think especially of how good Kyle Busch has been with Joe Gibbs Racing, I don't think anything's going to change right there. I think Kyle Busch could also win a Cup Series championship in one of those respective years. I think that we're still going to see Kyle Busch driving this team, and I think he'll finish up his NASCAR Cup Series career with Joe Gibbs Racing. Up next, we're going to talk about the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. I think that it's going to be Mark Truex Jr. who's going to return to the team in 2023. Now, Mark Truex Jr.'s contract does only go through the 2022 season. His contract expires at the end of next year. However, I do think that Joe Gibbs Racing is going to sign one more year. But a hot take and a bold prediction. I think that this is actually going to be Mark Truex Jr.'s final Cup Series season. I have a gut feeling that Mark Truex Jr. is not really going to enjoy the next-gen car. He did say and told the media recently that he did say that if he's not a big fan of the next-gen car, he's just going to go ahead and end up retiring after the 2022. Well, he didn't say he's retired, but he's probably going to retire if he's not enjoying the next-gen car. I have a gut feeling that he's not going to end up enjoying it. I feel like Mark Truex Jr. is probably going to retire after 2023. And I think that we'll see a driver that we'll talk about later end up replacing him long term. I think that this is going to be his final full-time Cup Series season. Up next, we're going to talk about the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. I don't expect anything to change here. I think that Cristobal is going to return to the team. Now, it is believed that Cristobal's contract does go through only right now the 2022 season, but I do think right now that Cristobal is going to continue to drive this team through 2023. He's a part of the Toyota development program for a long time. On top of that, he originally was supposed to run 1 year, 2 years actually with Vine Family Racing and 1 year with Joe Gibbs. I think he's going to get extended with this team, and I think he's going to continue driving the 20 car full-time going into 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 21 car for Wood Brothers. I think that nothing will change going into 2023. I think Harrison Burton is going to continue driving for this team in 2023. Harrison Burton will be taking over the 21 car for the Wood Brothers going into the 2022 season. The biggest reason is, one, he does bring some funding to the organization, and plus he is part of the KHI manager group, and his dad also had association with some contacts over at the Wood Brothers organization, which came to find out that he had association with them. So I still think that Harrison Burton is going to continue driving for the team in 2023, and this will be the last year drive for Wood Brothers where he goes to another organization in 2024. Up next, we're going to talk about the 22 car for Team Penske. Nothing's going to change right here. Joe Logano is going to continue driving for this team at least through the 2023 season. Now, his contract is going to end after 2023, but I do think by now Joe Logano is going to sign a pretty big contract, and he's going to finish his tenure at Team Penske. He's probably going to sign at least a 5 or 6 year contract extension with the team, probably going to try to finish up with the team that basically got him all the success that he's had so far, including a Cup Series championship in 2018. We will see Joe Logano continue driving this car in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the number 23 car for 2311 Racing. I don't expect anything to change. I think Bubba Wallace is going to continue driving this team. This team is built around Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace is one of the big reasons he brings sponsorship and funding. All the sponsors are going to continue to flock to him. And I think by this point as well, I think Bubba Wallace is going to become a much better driver and a much more consistent driver with some of the drivers we'll talk about on the team. I think Bubba Wallace will become a much better driver. I think he's actually going to win some races. Yes, you heard that right. I think Bubba Wallace is going to win races by this point, and I think he'll become a much more solid driver at 2311 Racing. Up next, we're going to talk about the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports. I don't expect anything to change like I talked about Chase Elliott. They're working on a pretty big contract for William Byron. William Byron, I think, will continue driving Hendrick Motorsports to at least probably like 2023 or 2024, especially with the consistent performances on the track, at least especially this year in 2021. I think that they're going to want to continue keeping William Byron in this organization. I think he continues driving for Hendrick Motorsports at least through 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 25 car for GMS Racing. I think GMS Racing is going to have 2 cars. This first one, the 25 car, is going to be a part-time basis in a split between Sheldon Creed and Zane Smith, who currently race in the NASCAR Truck Series for them. Now, I do think that Zane Smith and Sheldon Creed could potentially run in Xfinity full-time next year. Both of them could race full-time in Xfinity next year. Maybe Zane Smith a cog and Sheldon Creed with Junior Motorsports. But I do think that, especially since they're part of the Driver's Edge program, and the Driver's Edge program has a lot to say in regards to that, I think it's going to be a split between Sheldon Creed and Zane Smith for 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the other GMS car. We're going to talk about the second one. I think that this GMS car, and I've thought about this for a long time, and this is going to sound a little bit crazy, but hear me out. I think that Matt DiBenedetto is going to drive full-time for GMS Racing in 2023. I think more likely than not, I do think that he is going to drive in Xfinity full-time in 2022. I just think there's really not going to be any really good opportunities or really good rides for Matt DiBenedetto to go to in 2022. So I think that he's going to go to Xfinity. And I think in 2023, I think GMS is going to look at him. Now, I also do think if Matt performs well, he could get sponsorship as well. I think Matt will win races in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and I think by 2023, we're going to see him driving full-time for this team. I think that this will make the most sense overall. Up next, we're going to talk about the 32 car for 2311 Racing. 2311 Racing is expected to expand next year, and I think the driver, while this has not been currently announced at the moment, I think that Kurt Busch is going to be still continuing to drive with this team through 2023. I think when Kurt Busch does finally announce that he's going to 2311 Racing, I think that he is going to sign a 2-year deal with the team. And I think that in 2023, this is going to be his final full-time NASCAR Cup Series season. You look at Kurt Busch's age. Kurt Busch is currently 43. By 2023, he'll be 45 years old. He'll be the second oldest full-time NASCAR Cup Series driver that'll be currently racing. So I think by then, Kurt Busch is going to announce retirement, and I think by then, he is going to make the decision to jump up to the Fox Sports booth. I think that Kurt Busch goes to 2311 and retires at the end of 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports. I don't think anything's going to change with this team. I think Michael McDowell is going to continue driving for this team. Now, I do think Michael McDowell could potentially, any year from this point on, could be retired. But I do think Michael McDowell, especially how good of a road course driver he is, and this next-gen car, is going to matter with a lot of the road courses as well. I think Michael McDowell is going to become a much more consistent driver. He's going to be up front a lot more of these races. And I think that he'll continue driving for this team. Now, the question is he's going to be associated with 2311 Racing? I'm not exactly sure, but we will see, I think, Michael McDowell driving this 34 car in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 37 car for JTG Doherty Racing. I do think in 2022, JT Doherty Racing is going to downsize to a one-car operation, but I think that they're going to upsize to a two-car operation going into 2023. And I think this has to do with Toyota. Toyota says they are planning to expand, and they're looking to have a mid-tier Chevy team apparently go over to Toyota. I've been hearing that JT Doherty is potentially a team that is going to switch to Toyota. And I think for the first year with Ricky Stenhouse Jr., they are only going to have one car. But I think that they're going to upsize in 2022, and I think that they are going to bring Brandon Jones officially up to the Cup Series full-time. There is potential Brandon Jones could still go up to the Cup Series full-time with an organization like Gaunt Brothers Racing, and the reason is Brandon Jones has funding from his dad, who basically owns the Reen Company over there in Georgia. So I think right now that if they do expand next 2023, I think that Brandon Jones is going to be the driver. Up next, we're going to talk about the second front row in the final front row motorsports car. We're going to talk about the 38 car. I think that this car is going to be where Eric Almirola is going to go to finish up his NASCAR Cup Series career. And the reason is I think that the Smithfield funding is going to unfortunately dry up, or he's going to lose some of that Smithfield funding. And I mean, you never know. He may take that Smithfield funding and bring that over to Front Row Motorsports. I just think Eric Almirola, with how much older of a driver he is, and the performance not being as good in 2021, if he doesn't really perform next year, I know he does have a win, but I have a really bad feeling that if he doesn't perform in 2022, he's going to be let go after the 2022 season. So I think Eric Almirola in 2023, though, is going to be let go. I think he goes to Front Row Motorsports. I really thought that this was going to happen last year because he really struggled at the beginning of the year. But as time goes on, he's absolutely improved. And I think that we're still going to see Eric Almirola move, though, over to Front Row Motorsports in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 41 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. I don't expect anything to change even a couple years down the line. I think that we're going to still see Cole Custer drive this car. The reason, his dad is Joe Custer, who is the president currently at the SHR and the Haas Corporation. I don't think anything changes right here. I know that Cole Custer's performances have not absolutely been that great, but you have to remember, like I said, that he is the son of Joe Custer, who is the president at Stewart-Haas. So I don't think anything's going to change, and I think that we're still going to see Cole Custer drive this car. Hopefully by this point, Cole Custer becomes a much more consistent and a much better driver, but I'm not entirely confident about that, to be perfectly honest with you. Up next, we're going to talk about the 42 car for Chip Ganassi Racing. I think Chip Ganassi Racing is going to do a couple of races in 2023. I think that they are going to make a couple one-offs, and I think that they are going to partner up with Spire Motorsports on a part-time basis. And I think, get this, I think that Jimmy Johnson, you heard that right, I think Jimmy Johnson is going to run a few select races for Chip Ganassi Racing's organization. Jimmy Johnson has said very recently that he would like to maybe do a one-off in NASCAR, maybe a couple select races in the NASCAR Cup Series. And the race I'm thinking about has to be the Auto Club Short Track or the Daytona 500, or could potentially be both. I think Jimmy Johnson is going to make a very slight comeback in NASCAR, and I think that he'll drive for Chip Ganassi Racing in 2023 with partnership from Spire Motorsports. Up next, we're going to talk about the 43 car for Richard Petty Motorsports. I still believe that Eric Jones is going to be driving for this team in 2023, though it is confirmed that his contract right now only goes through 2022. I think you're going to want to have to keep the stability with this team. I think Eric Jones continues to drive this team, and we already know for a fact that they are going to be staying with Chevy unless they decide to switch Toyota in 2023. We know for sure that they're going to be staying with Chevy next year with Eric Jones, and I think they will still continue to see Eric Jones driving a 43 car full-time in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 5 car for 2311 Racing, the last and the third car. I think 2311 is going to expand to a three-car team by 2023, and I think that they are going to put John Hunter Nemechek in the 45 car in 2023. John Hunter Nemechek has been rumored to potentially be going up to the Xfinity Series full-time in 2022. Rumors are it could be Sam Hunt Racing or it could be Joe Gibbs Racing. He's rumored to be in one of those potential cars for the 2022 season. You look at what he did this past year in 2020. He was in the Cup Series full-time for Motorsports, and he took a chance on himself and went back down to the Truck Series to show that he had the potential to be really, really competitive. I think that he did that in a lot of ways because he wanted to go back and have another really, really good opportunity. I think 2311 is going to bring that representation. I don't think there's going to be any rides open in Joe Gibbs Racing's Cup Series program, and I think that John Nemechek is going to drive the third car. John Hunter is a very, very solid driver and someone that can get the best out of his equipment. I think that John Nemechek will become the third driver at 2311 Racing. Up next, we're going to talk about the 47 car for JT Doherty Racing. I don't expect anything to change here. I think Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is going to continue driving for this team. Now, there have been rumors that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. may leave the team at the end of 2021 and may go over to Stewart-Haas Racing, but I don't think things are going to change. I think Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for the first time in his career will be racing in a Toyota, and I think that he will continue driving the 47 car. He's been a very solid driver, was in the top 20, and especially early in the standings, he was really, really in the top 20. He has had a lot of speed throughout the series, have been a very good driver this year. I think that this team with Toyota especially is going to improve. I think we're going to continue to see him driving this 47 car going into 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 48 car for Team Hendrick. Nothing's going to change right here. Alex Bowman's contract goes to the end of 2023. His contract does end after this year, but if you look at his performance, especially in 2021, with 3 victories so far this year, coming at Richmond, coming at Dover, and coming at Pocono, it makes a lot of sense for them to keep him on the team. He also brings sponsorship, especially as Ally has a sponsorship commitment with this team through 2023. It makes a lot of sense to keep him running for this team, and I think we're going to continue to see him driving for this team through 2023 and many more years to come. I think the Hendrick's going to keep the core lineup for a long time, and I think we continue to see Alex Ullman drive this team long term. Up next, we're going to talk about the 51 car for Rick Ware Racing. I think that this is going to be the only other ride that Rick Ware is going to have in 2023, and I think that this is going to be the rotation ride where they're going to have multiple drivers drive for this team. I think the drivers are going to be Cody Ware, Josh Bilicki, and J.J. Ely. Basically, the drivers that currently have driven for the Rick Ware Racing organization, they're going to be the drivers that are going to continue racing for this organization long term. I think it makes a lot of sense to keep these core guys in your team. And I think especially since Cody Ware may be going to IndyCar at some point in the near future, I think it makes a lot of sense for him to keep in the organization. And I think we're going to continue seeing Cody Ware, Josh Bilicki, and J.J. Ely race in a co-corporation there. Up next, we're going to talk about the 61 car for Hattori Racing. I think Hattori Racing is going to be going up to the Cup Series in the foreseeable future. Now, it is not next year. I think that they'll be making their debut in the Cup Series in 2023. I don't think that they are going to run on a full-time basis in 2023. I think that they're going to run on a part-time basis with association with NBM Motorsports because they do have association with NBM in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So I do think that if they're going to go up, they're going to have association with the team. But I also do think, unlike NBM, I think that they're going to get factory support for Toyota. And not to mention, Austin Hill has been a very, very solid driver, not just in the Xfinity Series this year, but also in the Truck Series this year as well. I think we're going to continue to see this team improve. Hattori continue to grow as an organization in the lower tier series. And I think that we're going to see Hattori Racing jump up to the Cup Series in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 6.6 car for NBM Motorsports. I do not expect anything to change in regards to this car. I think Timmy Hill is going to continue to drive the team even through the 2023 season. I think Timmy Hill is a very, very talented driver. I think NBM is going to take a little bit of steps forward by this point as well. I think instead of finishing in the back and being so many laps down in these races, I think they're going to be more consistent, like 1 or 2 laps down. I think especially with the next-gen car and everything to be a little bit closer, I think it's going to help a team overall out like NBM Motorsports. And also, not to mention, it's probably going to be able to help them save a lot of money as well. I think that Timmy Hill will be driving the 6.6 car for NBM Motorsports in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 71 for Tommy Baldwin Racing. This is going to be a one-off entry for the 2023 season. I think that Tommy Baldwin Racing is going to make a one-off attempt, and I think that they are going to bring Ryan Truex into the organization on a one-off attempt. Tommy Baldwin Racing was supposed to attempt to run the Daytona 500 this year originally, with I think Ryan Truex, but unfortunately those talks apparently got declined. But I do think that they're going to make a one-off comeback in 2023 with Ryan Truex, and I think they'll run only one race in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 77 car for Kaulig Racing. This is going to be the second entry for Kaulig Racing. I think Kaulig will continue to still have 2 entries for next year. Now, I would think, and a lot of you probably would think, that they would get a full-time driver to drive for their organization. But I think that they're going to do the same thing they're doing next year. I think that AJ Allmendinger is going to drive on a part-time basis for the team in the Cup Series, especially with how good of a road course racer he is. I think they're also going to have Kaz Grala drive this car. And I think that they're also going to bring Josh Berry into the organization as well and get a little help from an organization we're going to talk about in a little bit on this channel. But I think this is going to be a rotation right for Kaulig Racing in 2023, and I think it will be a huge benefit for the Kaulig Racing organization going forward, especially with 2 really, really good drivers on the team. I think if this will be the driver lineup for the team, a couple other drivers may join this team going forward as well. Up next, we're going to talk about the 78 car for Live Fast Motorsports. I don't expect anything to change. Even at this point, I do think that BJ McLeod is still going to want to continue racing. I think he's going to be driving this car in a majority of races. Now, I do think that he'll probably get some dirt guys to race in the dirt race at Bristol. That is still continue on in 2023. And I think he'll get some road course ringers to drive for this organization as well. To me, I think that we're going to see BJ McLeod run a majority of races with a few select races with a couple different other drivers that could run in those specific events as well. Up next, we're going to talk about the 83 car for Junior Motorsports. I think Junior Motorsports is going to finally make the jump up to the Cup Series in the 2023 season. Now, the 83 car is going to be a car that is not going to have a charter. They are going to run on a part-time basis, and they're going to have Sam Mayer, who will be by at this point driving full-time for Junior Motorsports in the Xfinity Series, and Justin Allgaier race on a part-time basis to get this car up to speed. Sam Mayer, I think, will make some Cup starts in 2023. I think Sam Mayer is a very, very good and very, very awesome young talented driver who I think will bring a lot of benefit. And Justin Allgaier has had a lot of past Cup Series experience. So I think that these will be the 2 drivers that are currently racing in that part-time 83 car. I think that car will only run a few select races like the Crown Jewel events to help Junior Motorsports get a little more resources and a little more of data that they could gather for there. Up next, we're going to talk about the other Junior Motorsports car, and that is the 88 car. This car, I think, is going to be full-time, and I think that this car is going to be driven by Noah Gragson. Now, Noah Gragson's future is currently unknown at the moment, where it doesn't really know where he's going to go. But I do think, especially with the potential that Junior Motorsports is going to go to 5 cars in 2022 now, potentially that could happen, I think that Noah Gragson gets re-signed. Noah Gragson, while this year has not been absolutely fantastic in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, I think that they're going to want to continue keeping him in the organization, especially that he brings funding. And I think that he's a talented driver, too, who's won race. I know this year has been kind of a downturn. He's also kind of lost sponsorship along the way as well. That being said, though, I think that Noah Gragson will continue to drive for this team, and I think he'll drive full-time in the 88 car in the Cup Series in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 96 car for Gaunt Brothers Racing. I think Gaunt Brothers Racing is going to run a majority of the races in 2023, and they're going to have a rotation of current NASCAR Xfinity Series drivers and Truck Series drivers as well. I think that they are going to have Ty Gibbs, run a majority and bulk of these races, where he'll run most of the races that they run to get him prepared for these. And this will also be prepared by Joe Gibbs Racing as well. Then I think Daniel Hemmert's going to run a few races, and I think Chandler Smith is going to run a few Cup Series races as well. The reason I think that they're going to have this right a lot more is to get Ty Gibbs ready, because I think Ty Gibbs in 2024 is going to replace Mark Truex Jr. in the NASCAR Cup Series. So I do think right now that I think the lineup next year in 2023 will be Ty Gibbs, Daniel Hemrick, and Chandler Smith in the Gaunt Brothers organization. And finally, we are going to talk about the number 99 car for Trackhouse Racing. Nothing's going to change right here. This is a driver that they're going to stand by from the beginning to the end. Daniel Suarez will be driving this number 99 car. I think at this point, Daniel Suarez in 2022 will be becoming much better and a much more consistent driver. And we will continue to see Daniel Suarez continue driving for the team. And I think by then as well, I think that Daniel Suarez could potentially have his first Cup Series victory. He probably should have already had 1 or 2 Cup Series victories at this point. Looking at Bristol with the team, he was really, really consistent. But still, I think that we are going to continue to see Daniel Suarez drive this number 99 car and continue to be a very, very good asset for this team. So, anyway, that is my 2023 NASCAR Cup Series driver lineup predictions. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support my page as well. List description below for that, and comment below your predictions for the 2023 season. Let me know your list below, and let me see if I can grade them for you, in my opinion. Anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great and awesome NASCAR content like this. Take care, everybody.